I can feel the weight of the dark side upon you. You have traveled to Ziost, and from there found your way to Korriban. You have walked the Valley of the Dark Lords, and it has left its mark upon your echo in the Force. I see you have begun to train in Shicho, and to study the lessons of those who came before us. Your training is progressing well, my apprentice. When first you found this holocron, you were weak, a shell of meat containing nothing but your raw potential within the Force. It was this potential which awakened me. In life, I spent nearly a century amassing the information contained herein, and in my death, my only remaining desire is to see my knowledge pass on. It pleases me to see you progress. But know this, you have come far, but it is nothing compared to the journey ahead, where once you are weak, you have begun to become strong. But you are still a slave, chained by the Force, and so you shall remain until you can follow the path before you to its end. For now, we shall continue your lessons on the Sith and Jedi. Unlocking History of the Force. Processing. The galaxy would find another equilibrium after the Great Hyperspace War. The Republic would continue to grow and expand, and the Jedi would flourish. During this time, the human male Freedon Nadd would arrive on the world of Ossus. The masters there would be surprised by the amount of knowledge he had already gained in the Force, and he quickly grew under Jedi teachings, training under many of the Order's most prestigious. It was agreed by the Council that Nadd would become a master faster than any other before him. And so it came to pass that the Jedi would construct one last test for Nadd. When the time came to select the next group of Padawans to ascend to knighthood, he was passed over. This frustrated Nadd to no end. He had done all that was asked of him. His power was evident to all, including himself. He could not understand why the masters had refused him the rank of knight when he clearly was fully capable of being one. And so Nadd would seek out Master Mata Tremaine. Tremaine was the head lightsaber instructor at the Ossus Academy, and her serenity and calm was well known throughout the Order. Nadd would approach her due to this serenity, thinking it would preclude her from rejecting his questions. He wished to know what was expected of him, so that he could fulfill the Master's expectations. What happened next would reverberate throughout the galaxy for generations to come. Nadd would find Tremaine training with her saber, alone and on the outskirts of Ossus City. He would sit and wait patiently for her to finish her routine, and the minutes began to creep by. The longer that passed, the more frustrated Nadd became that the Jedi Master refused to acknowledge his presence. Finally, he could contain himself no longer. Nadd's frustrations bubbled over, and he began to advance on Tremaine, voicing his troubles as he did. Master Tremaine reacted by performing an acceleration with her lightsaber, a flurry of moves ending with her blade mere centimeters from Nadd's chest. She then went back to her training, and Nadd stormed off, fuming over her reaction to him. As he did so, Tremaine finally spoke to him. She told Nadd that the Masters could not tell him what needed to be done, and that it was his burden to discover himself. Until he did that, he would never be a Jedi. Nadd's frustrations exploded. All of the hurt and worry he had been feeling since his rejection burst into the hot flame of anger. Nadd accused the Masters of hoarding their power, of being afraid of one such as he. He proclaimed he was indeed a Jedi, whether the Masters wished it or not. He told Tremaine he would become the greatest Jedi to ever live. In response, Tremaine activated her saber and challenged Nadd to show her. In his anger, Nadd leapt to the challenge, and their sabers clashed across the garden, Nadd struggling to match the Jedi Sword Master. However, after a few minutes, he noticed a weakness in her defense, and he struck. In that moment, Nadd locked eyes with Tremaine and realized it had all been a test. Tremaine had purposely goaded him into fighting and was allowing him to strike her down. This was how the Masters were to judge his worthiness. The blade struck Tremaine before Nadd could turn it aside. Her body vanished in an instant as she became one with the Force. At first, Nadd could feel nothing but shame and guilt, but as he stared at the pile of robes that had once been Master Tremaine, his guilt turned to rage. Rage as he had never known it before. He could not believe that his test had been such a trap. Why had the Jedi not simply told him what they expected? Why the manipulation? He blamed Tremaine for her own death, saying if the Council had only treated him as an equal, had only spoken with him, it never would have occurred. He immediately left Ossus, his rage following in his wake. He believed the Jedi had set the board against him on purpose to drive him from the Order. And so he set course for the old Sith Empire. Nadd swore his revenge and became enthralled by the dark side of the Force. He determined himself to seek out and find the secrets of Sith sorcery. Nadd searched many worlds across the old Sith Empire. He would find the Holocron of King Addis, a Holocron I myself have learned from. But his quest would fail to bring him into contact with any living members of the original Sith species, and the Dark Jedi began to despair of ever learning the secrets of their sorcery. Just when he was about to give up the search, he discovered word of Naga Sadow and learned of his exile on the moon of Yavin 4. Nadd traveled to Yavin, and upon landing on the jungle moon was set upon by the Massassi, a tribe of warriors bred and warped by Naga Sadow's Sith alchemy. They attacked Freedon Nadd, and his time with the Holocron of King Addis served him well. He had learned much, and he was strong with the dark side. The Massassi, impressed with his power, judged him worthy to bring before the Dark Lord Naga Sadow himself. Nadd was led deep into the jungle, to the massive Sith pyramids Sadow had built there. Then, the ancient Sith was roused from his stasis, and upon meeting Freedon Nadd, the Dark Lord knew he had found one worthy of his legacy. Sadow took Nadd as an apprentice, and the Dark Jedi finally achieved his goal of joining the Sith. Nadd would study under Sadow for a time, and he would learn quickly even the ancient secrets of Sith alchemy. Freedon became strong in the dark side, and when he had completed his training, he compiled his knowledge into a holocron of his own creation. On my pilgrimage, I was able to briefly study Nadd's holocron, and the knowledge contained within it is deep indeed. Nadd truly knew the dark side, perhaps as few others have. Upon completion of his holocron, Nadd betrayed Naga Sadow. Freedon knew that only one could hold the title of Dark Lord, and so when he was strong enough, he turned on his master and claimed the title for himself in the tradition of the Sith. Then, the new Dark Lord would depart Yavin in search of his own world to conquer, eventually stumbling on the world of Onderon. There, he felt he had at last found his kingdom. Nadd used the knowledge he had gained from Addis and Sadow to overthrow the planet's king and place himself on the throne. He would help the inhabitants of the planet build advanced technology to defend themselves from the wild beasts, and he would change their culture to one dominated by Sith lore and teachings. Nadd would exile those who refused to bend the knee to the wilderness beyond Onderon's only city, Isis, and there, they would band together into a group of hunter-gatherers known as the Beast Riders. This group would resist the will of Nadd and wage a civil war for the better part of his rule and into the time of his descendants. Freedon would rule for a century. So strong was he in the dark side that his spirit would persist after his death. He would further cement the way of the Sith on Onderon and train his descendants in the ways of Sith alchemy. His ultimate goal was to find someone strong enough in the Force to master alchemy to the degree they could create a new body for his spirit to inhabit. Over time, the palace on Onderon became a powerful nexus of dark side energy. Nadd's descendants continued to persecute the Beast Riders, and the war would eventually become so bad that the government lost all control of the situation. Onderon lay within the Republic's borders, if not a member of the government itself, and eventually the Republic would receive word of the bloody conflict. They would dispatch a small team of Jedi, including the young Jedi qel-Droma, to help bring peace. Once there, the Jedi discovered Nadd's influence on his family, and a bloody war erupted that saw the Republic wrest control of the planet from Nadd's descendants. During the conflict, a pair of cousins from the Empress Teta system, known as Satal and Alima Keto, were found to have the potential to preserve the legacy of the Sith, and as such, Nadd helped them to escape the fighting with some of his teachings. After the conflict, Nadd's remains were moved to Onderon's moon of Duxon, and his spirit was trapped in a tomb the Jedi built there. The Jedi hoped the wild beasts of the moon would help to keep the final resting place of the Dark Lord undisturbed, sealing his spirit away forever. However, their hopes were in vain. Freedon's spirit was indeed trapped, but he could leave his tomb for short periods and continue to appear to the Keto cousins, teaching them the secrets of Sith sorcery. The Ketos would establish a cult known as the Krath, and they would become a major force in the Empress Teta system, eventually seizing control for themselves. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the galaxy, the Jedi continued to flourish. Their temple on Coruscant was constructed, though at the time it was merely an outpost to facilitate contact with the Republic. Their home base would remain Ossus, and the Academy there would enter a golden age. At the Academy on Dantooine, a promising young Jedi would begin to rise. His name was Exar Kun. Kun was apprenticed to Jedi Master Vodo Siask Boss, and he was exceptionally gifted in the Force. It was his drive that truly set him apart. Kun wished to be a great Jedi Knight, and as such, his thirst for knowledge knew no bounds. One day, this desire for knowledge led Kun to sneak into his master's hut, where he accessed the old Jedi's Holocron. There, Exar would learn the name of Freedon Nadd, the Dark Lord who conquered Onderon, but before he could learn too much, he was caught in the act by Master Boss. Disappointed in his apprentice, Master Boss rebuked the young human and ordered him to spar his two friends as punishment. Exar was an extremely skilled duelist, constantly driving to practice, often against multiple opponents. Boss had paired Kun against two of his friends, and the young Jedi easily defeated one foe and then turned on the second, a Cathar. While dueling her, Kun taunted her heritage, which drove her to anger. She struck out with her claws and scarred Kun's face, which in turn drove Exar over the edge. His fury exploded, and he overcame his enemy and would have struck her down, except Master Boss entered the fray. The Jedi Master knocked Exar back, and the young Jedi responded by using the Force to summon another saber. Using Jarkai and his anger, Exar was able to overcome the older Jedi Master, leaving him beaten and humiliated in the dust at his feet. Seeing the Jedi beaten, Exar realized there was nothing more that they could truly teach him. He would leave Ossus for the planet of Onderon to seek out the legacy of Freedon, Nadd, and the Sith. Elsewhere, the Krath had grown to become a major issue to the Empress Teta system. They were on the verge of becoming a threat to the galaxy at large, and eventually the Jedi prodigy qel-Droma would be sent to infiltrate the cult and bring them down from within. There, Ulic would instead succumb to the lure of the dark side. He would become a dark Jedi, giving in and slaying Satao Keto, taking control of the Krath cult as a result. Meanwhile, Exar Kun would arrive on Onderon, claiming to be a Jedi archaeologist there to study the hoard of Sith relics that the Jedi had seized from Freedon Nadd's treasury. The Jedi there did not trust Exar's story, however, and they tried to force him to leave Onderon. Exar refused and told them that he would continue his search without their help. He would travel to the city of Isis, and there, in the streets, Kun would stumble upon two street preachers who were calling for the return of Dark Lord Nadd. After a bribe, the pair promised to leave Exar to Freedon's tomb on the moon of Duxon. There, he would find Nadd's tomb to be made completely of Beskar, Mandalorian iron. His saber could not break through. After many futile attempts, Kun was about to despair when he felt a strange power fill the air. Trying one last time to breach the tomb, he found the Beskar crumbled at his touch, opening the way before him. He entered, and would find the skeletal remains of Freedon Nadd. There, Nadd's spirit appeared to Kun and gave him two scrolls that had first been given to Nadd by Naga Sadow himself. Nadd would then tell Kun to seek the last home of the Sith. It is important to note that until now, Kun had not yet fully embraced the dark side. It was his thirst for knowledge and desire for greatness which drove him forward. While he had given into his anger on a few occasions, it was out of frustration at being denied the satisfaction he sought. Exar was slowly being seduced by the darker side of the Force because his master had decided he was not ready for more knowledge. The final home of the Sith turned out to be Korriban. The scrolls provided Kun with the coordinates he needed, and he set course for the Valley of the Dark Lords. There, Nadd would again appear to Kun and lead him into one of the many ruined temples within the valley. Exar would almost be overcome by the overpowering darkness he felt there, and for the first time, he cowered from his pursuit of knowledge and sought to leave that place before it was too late. But he found the way blocked and was forced deeper into the temple. Deep within the heart, he discovered a crystal which had been used to house the spirits of slain Jedi Masters. While he was studying it, Nadd released the energies contained within, and the entire temple was brought down upon Exar Kun. His body was shattered, and he lay dying. As he did, Nadd once more appeared to him and told Kun that the only way for him to save himself was to give in to his feelings and open himself fully to the dark side. Fearing death, and with no other choice, Kun finally gave in and fully accepted the darkness. His body was healed in an instant, and he rose stronger than he had ever been. Nadd tested the risen Kun by sending fierce Chukata beasts to attack him. Kun would slay the monsters, and this exhibition of prowess would rouse the ancient Sith spirits around him, who would give Exar Kun their blessing. But Exar Kun would refuse it. He claimed he would never be tainted by the dark side, despite no longer being able to call upon the Ashla. Kun was in denial because, again, he had not started down his path on his own. He had been forced down it by the Jedi's withholding of their knowledge. Kun had a thirst for this knowledge, and instead of trying to find a way to channel this, the Jedi tried to repress it. All Kun wished was to be a great Jedi. He never imagined himself a Sith Lord, and even after the dark side had healed his battered body, he still refused to give up this hope. But Nadd was not yet finished. He told Kun there was one last place he must go, Yavin 4, to the pyramids of Naga Sadow. Kun, still believing his quest for knowledge would ultimately vindicate him to the Jedi Order, followed Nadd's wishes and set course for the Jungle Moon. There, he was attacked by the fierce Massassi warriors, just as Nadd had been. But Exar was still attempting to use the Ashla, and finding himself cut off from it, was quickly overtaken and taken prisoner. The Massassi recognized his strength with the Force, and so they took him to the Temple of Fire to offer as a blood sacrifice. There, the twisted beings summoned an enormous Sith worm, a remnant of Naga Sadow's experiments with Sith alchemy. The worm would seize Kun, and, not wishing death, Kun would finally fully embrace the dark side. He would realize clinging to petty titles like Jedi would not save his life, and so he would abandon such things and accept himself within the moment. Exar felt the dark side rush into his being as it had on Korriban, and this time he did not deny the power. It flooded him, and with it he obliterated the worm, the arena they were in, and a large portion of the surrounding Massassi. Awed by his power, the Massassis pledged themselves to serve Exar Kun. In that moment, Nadd once again appeared to the new Sith Lord. He told Exar he was thrilled with the young Sith's progress, and that the time had come to use alchemy to create a new body for Nadd to inhabit. Instead, Kun summoned his anger, and in an incredible burst of power, dispersed Freedon Nadd's spirit for all time. In his last moments of awareness, Nadd would reach across the galaxy to the Empress Teta system and warn the craft cult that Exar Kun had become a pretender to the Sith legacy. The Massassi pledged themselves to Kun, believing him the new Dark Lord, but Kun, as said, had grown beyond things such as petty titles. He desired only more power, and so he ordered the Massassi to construct more temples of Sith design upon Yavin 4 to focus it, become a nexus of dark side energy. While the Massassi worked at Kun's bidding, the Dark Lord would continue to seek out knowledge of the dark side. He would be drawn back to the temple where he defeated the Sith worm, deducing it must have been left to protect something much more valuable. In the ruins of the Temple of Fire, Kun would find the Corsair, flagship of Naga Sadow himself. This vessel was lined with ancient Sith crystals, which would allow it to tear out the heart of a star. Inside this battleship, Kun would find the alchemy lab of Naga Sadow, and within he would rediscover Sith secrets thought lost forever. He would discover the secret of twisting life, the same that had caused Ajanta Paul and his followers to first be banished by the Jedi. With this power, he would twist the Massassi into even more brutal warriors and create the mighty Terran Tatek, among other abominations. Eventually, the dark side would reveal the existence of the craft cult to Exar Kun, and he would depart Yavin 4 to hunt down and destroy the other students of Freedon Nadd. He would arrive to find the Jedi already there, intent on rescuing qel-Droma from his position within the cult. But the Jedi failed in their mission, and Kun used the confusion to slip within the craft fortress. There, he would find Ulluk and Alima Keto. Exar would easily dispatch Keto and then engage with Ulluk. But the two were evenly matched. Both were such masters with a blade that neither could overcome the other, and as they dueled, the dark side grew around them, coalescing into the image of Marka Ragnos, lost, dead king of the Sith. The pair immediately ceased dueling, and the ancient Sith Lord proclaimed them both worthy of the title of Sith. Ragnos would burn marks into each of their foreheads and proclaim Exar the rightful Dark Lord, Ulluk his chief apprentice. After, the ancient spirit would dissipate, and Ulluk and Exar would join together, swearing to conquer the galaxy. They would begin by consolidating power around the Empress Teta system, but to truly strike at the Republic, Exar and Ulluk knew they needed a stronger force. And so Kun would travel back to the world of Ossus, and there he would pretend to still be a follower of the Ashla. He would proclaim a rejuvenation of the Jedi and rail against the Masters of the Order, particularly their desire to hoard access to knowledge. He would wow the students with displays of his power and promise them the same if they followed him. While there, he would hear the call of the Sith Holocron kept by the ancient Jedi Master Odan-Ur. Kun knew he had to have this trove of knowledge, and when he approached the Holocron, felt the darkness within him and flew to his hand. In response, Odan-Ur attacked Exar Kun. Odan-Ur was one of the oldest and most powerful Jedi of the Order, but he was not strong enough. He was slain by Exar Kun, who would then leave the planet, taking near 20 Jedi with him to Yavin 4, where they would learn the dark side of the Force. While this was happening, Kun would dispatch Ulluk to acquire an army for them. Ulluk would travel to the world of Kuar, and there he would aid Mandalore the Indomitable and seize control of the Mandalorian clans. He would fuse them with his Krath cult and create a formidable fighting force. Then, they would travel to the Republic shipyard at Fornost and capture nearly 300 Republic warships. Exar Kun and Ulluk qel-Droma had their Sith army. While Exar settled in to train his new followers in the ways of the Sith, Ulluk chafed to continue his campaign. He urged an assault on Coruscant itself, but Kun disagreed. The Dark Lord desired a more patient, measured approach, but Ulluk was full of fire and rage and wished to have his vengeance against the Republic and the Jedi. Exar knew there would be no stopping his apprentice, and so he told Ulluk to attack, but should he fail, he would be left abandoned by the Dark Lord. On Yavin 4, Kun used the Sith Holocron he had taken from Odan-Ur to corrupt his new disciples and form the Brotherhood of the Sith. He would order his new disciples to head into the galaxy to find and murder their old Jedi Masters. Kun himself planned to track down his old master, Bodo Siask Boss, but before he could depart the moon, a ship carrying Mandalore the Indomitable arrived. He informed Exar that Ulluk's attack on Coruscant had failed, Alima Keto had betrayed Ulluk, and the Sith apprentice had been captured by the Jedi. Despite his earlier warnings, Kun decided to travel to Coruscant to rescue his young pupil, having already accomplished his goal of creating the Brotherhood. Kun and Mandalore would take a phalanx of Massassi to Coruscant and break into the Senate chambers during Ulluk's trial. Kun used his Sith sorcery to freeze the room in place, and then he made his way to the pulpit, holding Supreme Chancellor Sidrona. Kun would forcibly take control of Sidrona's mind, forcing him to declare the Republic as an aging, crumbling, corrupt institution before killing him before the assembly. They would move to leave, but before the group could exit the Senate chambers, they were confronted by Exar's old master, Bodo Siask Boss. Kun attempted to sway the old Jedi to the dark side, but failed, and Boss challenged Exar to a duel. The two would battle, and when Exar found he could not overcome the Jedi Master quickly, he revealed the secret modification he had made to his lightsaber, igniting a second blade from the bottom end. This was the first double-bladed lightsaber in history. The advantage would swing in Kun's favor, and he would strike down Vodosiask Boss. As the Jedi lay dying, he promised Exar the two would fight again, and that Exar would be defeated. The group would leave the stunned Senate and depart the planet without opposition. Back on Yavin, Kun would learn his disciples had been mostly successful in their missions. 8 of the Jedi Order's most eminent masters were dead, but the treachery of Alima Keto had not been forgotten. She was given command of the Corsair and told to attack the Kron Cluster. The Kron Cluster was a group of 10 stars that was more or less near to the Ossus system. Keto would use the Corsair to tear the core from one of these stars, hoping to use it as a weapon against the Jedi. However, this plan was a trap, both for the Jedi hunting Keto and for Keto herself. The stars in the cluster became unstable, and the entire group went supernova. This caused panic in Ossus, as the world lay in range of the blast wave. The Jedi scrambled to evacuate, and Exar Kun and Ulic saw their chance to strike. Kun and qel-Droma would take a group of Mandalorians and Massassi to raid the Great Library on Ossus and take its secrets for themselves. They would hit the Jedi when they were at their most disorganized and steal many secrets and treasures from the archives. Kun left Ossus considering his raid a success, but his apprentice Ulic was left behind on the world and forced into a duel with his brother, qel-Droma. Ulic would slay him, and in his guilt surrender himself to the Jedi. He would be stripped of his connection to the Force, and, overcome with shame at what he had done under the dark side's influence, he would agree to lead the Jedi and Republic to Exar Kun. Thousands of ships converged on the moon of Yavin 4, and Exar Kun knew he had no hope of victory. Instead, he would fall back to the secrets of Sith alchemy. He would enact a ritual, sacrificing his Massassi by the thousands in the process. His goal would be to free his spirit from his body to roam the cosmos forever. While the Jedi attack succeeded in the skies above Yavin, and his forces were utterly destroyed on the ground, Kun's ritual was a success. His spirit was free from his physical body, but at a cost. He would become trapped in his temple on the moon of Yavin, a mad spirit locked away forever in the darkness and forgotten. And so would end the Great Sith War. What is there to be learned from this tale? I believe the answer to be obvious. With Freedon, Nadd, and Exar Kun, the Jedi's arrogance directly led to an opposite reaction in the Force. With Nadd, the Jedi knew how powerful he was. His destiny was obvious, even to the weakest and most untrained Force-sensitive. And yet, despite this, they set up unreasonable tests and barriers to Nadd's progress. How was Nadd to know what was expected of him? He had followed the will of the Force his entire life, and that will had brought him to the Jedi. He trusted them to show him the way, and instead they expected him to already know. In their arrogance, the Jedi Masters believed that they were the gatekeepers of fate. If Nadd could not adhere to their rules and expectations, then he was not good enough. The will of the Force meant nothing to them, because their confidence in the rightness of the Ashla had blinded them to the full river of the Force as it pushed the currents of destiny around Freedon Nadd. They would repeat this same mistake with Exar Kun. They viewed Kun's thirst for knowledge as something they could not control, as a vice in need of tempering, rather than as a part of his being. They blinded themselves to the will of the Force with their dogma, and as a result, Kun was forced to seek knowledge elsewhere. If the Jedi had simply fully acknowledged Nadd's destiny and helped to steer it, if they had only given Kun access to their hoard of knowledge on the Ashla, Bogan, and Bendu, then the Jedi Order would not have lost one of their best. As a direct result of their mishandling of Nadd and Kun, the Jedi would also lose qel-Droma, another around whom destiny swirled like a fierce tide. His fate would become subsumed by Nadd and Kun's teachings rather than steered by the Jedi Order. Imagine if the Jedi had simply helped Nadd to understand that they expected patience. Imagine if instead of being forced to turn to the Sith to sate his thirst for knowledge, Kun was pupiled to the great archivist Odan full-time. The Jedi sowed the seeds of destruction in the way they handled these two beings, and the galaxy reaped the result. I have spoken to you about the need to understand the currents of fate, to be aware of the will of the Force, for only when you are truly aware of how the currents of destiny flow can you break free of their grip. The Jedi started the Great Sith Wars, though no Jedi will ever admit this. If they had simply recognized the weight of destiny when it was presented to them, they could have steered its progress, avoided everything that came after. The millions dead across many conflicts, the destruction of Ossus, now stripped bare of life thanks to the Kron supernova, and all the suffering these events caused could have been changed had the Jedi simply kept the tides of fate in their awareness. But instead, they lost themselves in their dogma, and the destinies of Nadd, Kun, and qel-Droma were taken by the current out of their reach. Meditate on this lesson as you travel to Yavin 4, for this moon is your next destination. You must seek out the ruined temples deep within the jungle, and you must be wary. The Jedi maintain an outpost on the planet to this day, and they will not take kindly to you plundering the ruins. But go there you must. Walk in the footsteps of Nadd and Exar Kun. Only when I can taste the aura of the Masasia upon you will I unlock the next section. Till then, go now, and may the Force break your chains.